Welcome to Funding and Disrupting, the most in-depth business podcast for companies looking to raise money and the investors who fund them. Every episode, we interview a funded founder, plus the investor who funded them, to get the real story of how it all came together. If you're searching for funding for a disruptive technology or business, or you're searching for the best companies to invest in, then you come to the right place. This episode of Funding and Disrupting is brought to you by OURA Collective, a leading tech PR and marketing firm. Let's get funding and disrupting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Funding and Disrupting. I'm Keith Herman, your host. Over the past year, we brought you interviews from VC managing partners and tech company founders spanning 4 continents. Today, I'm happy to announce we're adding the 5th continent, South America. And yes, today's special interview is with Colombian founder and CEO of Adelante, formerly known as Talentu, Mateo Folador. We all know that Latam market is severely underserved when it comes to accessing goods and services. Adelante is one of those visionary companies actively working on bridging that gap. In Latam, there are 400 million people underbanked, 123 million have formal jobs, and have the same access to the financial services as informal jobs, mainly because there are no data sets available. For this reason, Adelante is creating an ecosystem that helps users find jobs, get skills, and access financial services while helping companies to find and retain talent. It is a great pleasure to have with us today from Medellin, Colombia, Mateo Folador. ¿Cómo estás, Mateo?
Hey, Keith. ¿Cómo estás? How are you, man?
Terrific. Mateo, as much as I'd like to speak to you in Spanish for the sake of our global audience, we're going to keep it English if you don't mind.
No, I don't have a problem with it. Just putting in some juice for it.
Okay. So Mateo, first tell us a little bit about yourself and what it was like as a kid growing up in Colombia.
Well, I was born in Medellin, and I'm a son of a father that is Argentinian and a mother that is from Colombia. And Medellin, and usually in other countries, Colombia gets pictured like all this kind of very dusty place. But in terms of that, Colombia, it's a very developed country in many things. We still are missing some things about infrastructure, but living here, it's kind of very similar to what you are going to see in any country. What I think what happens here in Colombia is that, and you see it here, every person that comes to Colombia gets in love with the culture, with the energy that this place vibes. And well, Medellin, in terms of that, it was kind of what we all do. Go to school, learn things, go travel, things like that. It's kind of a normal life. And until I got out of school, that I got out of about 18, my mom went broke. So I had to start working early in life. And from that, it has been entrepreneurship of my life.
How and when did you get introduced to technology, and how have you seen the tech community evolve in Colombia since then?
Well, that's an interesting question. It was a total accident. I was working with...
It always is.
Yes. Basically, I was working to marketing and got a job and found a guy that had a web portal. And basically, in that time in Colombia, you have no ecosystem related to tech. That was very, very new. And we were talking about 13 years ago. And basically, I met him and kind of fell in love with technology, with the way that you can create out of pure code. You can create a lot of value. But not only that, in Latam, there's one thing, and it's Latam is full, and Latin America is full of problems. And when you're full of problems, there are a lot of solutions and a lot of value to be captured. So tech basically is an enabler to solve bigger problems faster in a more efficient way. And I've kind of fell in love with it. So after that, I became his partner, and we built like 5 different projects. Some were successful, some not but successful. But at that time, I'm telling you about 13 years ago, there was no ecosystem here. I remember when I went for the first time in Silicon Valley, and basically in a conversation with a person over there, we were talking about the number of BCs that were in Colombia. We were talking there were 5 BCs in Colombia, and when I'm talking about, and when I was with him, he was telling me 5 BCs are only here in this building. So that's kind of the comparison that you have to make. And the other interesting aspect of that moment is that BCs in Latam, that has changed a bit over the last 3 years, but BCs in Latam behave more like private equity when they're trying to reduce risk instead of looking for ways to make these great successes. I think that's part of a process. When you're a region that has never created a company that captures a lot of value, well, you don't think that that's possible. But when companies like now Nubank, now Rappi have been able to become unicorns, and yes, there are turnovers of the market, but these companies basically changed the way things were working in Latam, because Latam is a region where all the power is in distribution, but there's a lot of opportunity creating better products. And that's when we can create a lot of value.
Who are some of the people in the world of tech that have inspired you to pursue your journey in tech?
Well, I think some of them are kind of the usual. For example, for me, Steve Jobs was like, wow, he literally, the way of he communicating things and the way he understood the user, for me, it was amazing. But there are two very specific kind of entrepreneurs that I have. For one, I had the chance to meet him. One is Jeff Hoffman. He was one of the founders of Priceline. And I was kind of able to have the opportunity to make a training with him. And he literally changed the way I see many things. And the other guys that I really admire is the one from Basecamp, because mostly because of the way they see things. Because usually we think there are very only a straight path to go from one place to another one. But when you see them that they are taking other routes and creating a lot of value, and I think when you kind of challenge that, I see myself as, and I think every entrepreneur, if a person is starting a company, basically he's a problem solver. Basically, he found a problem that needs to be solved. And I love being able to do that. And when you see people that are able to do that in a different way, I think that kind of creates this magic around it. If I wanted to number 3, those 3 are kind of one of the other part that I really love is everything regarding to culture. So for me, for example, the Reed Hastings from Netflix is also kind of a reference for me.
Terrific. So let's talk now about Adelante. So where did you get the idea and what prompted you to pursue it, as you know, with such vigilance as you have?
Well, it's an interesting story. And one day I was getting out of a call center, and there was this woman crying at the entrance, and I kind of approached her and asked her, "Hey, what's your problem? What happened to you?" Because I think she had a kind of this very bad problem. And the answer was, I didn't get the job. And I was like, in a very naive way, saying, "Hey, don't worry, you're going to get a better one." And she said, "No, you don't understand. I have been looking for a job for more than 2 years now." And we were like, "Okay." And I owe money. I don't have money to pay the rent. My son is in jail. So she was kind of in this very vulnerable moment of her life. And I decided to help her. And interestingly, 2 weeks later, she was able to find a job. And we only changed one thing. And that's when she was asked in the interview, "What do you need to improve?" Her answer was patience. And she was trying to get a job in a call center. So if you want to work in a call center, basically the interviewer, and you say, "Oh, hey, what you need to improve is patience," basically he's going to put a cross on you and you're not going to get the job. The reason why she was saying that she needed to improve patience is because in any moment of life, she asked, "Hey, how do I answer this question?" And then any person told her, "Hey, just answer patience." And everyone needs to answer patience. Well, basically 2 weeks later, she got the job. 8 weeks later, she was one of the top salespeople in the call center. So the company needed that specific talent. This person needed the job, and she was in debt and she was not able to pay because she wasn't able to get a job. So it's this cycle, this negative cycle that always occurs. And when you go and see Latam and the structure of Latin America, you see that that's the situation of every person or many, many people across Latam. So we're talking, we have almost 650 million people, and there are 400 million people that are what we call financially forgotten. This is people that don't have access to fair financial services. And just to give you, since your audience is mostly from outside Latam, just to give you a quick comparison, the top interest rate that you get charged in the US is around 18%, and it changes from state to state. In Latam, the financially forgotten could get charged up to 700% per year.
Wow, that's insane.
And the other interesting part is that banks here in Latin America are able to produce almost twice the profits compared to banks in Latam related to the stock price. So that's when you have this huge opportunity in Latam. And you are talking about 40% of people are unbanked. We are talking about people that are not using the financial system. So that's what creates a unique opportunity in the market that it's huge.
Let's talk about the platform itself. What's been the biggest technical challenge you've experienced since you've started Adelante?
This is a combination between using B2B and B2C. So the first challenges that we have, it's not even technical. The biggest challenge that we have is getting people to change the way they do things. And we are talking that we are able, in terms of, we help companies to find and retain talent. So the biggest success case, for example, that we have is we're able to reduce costs for a company that used to spend more than 2.2 million US per year. And now, since they're working with us, they only spend 600,000. But the interesting part here is that many times this is more about working with their users and showing them how to use the technology. Because as you may know, and as the audience may know, the adoption of new technologies is not about the tech itself. It's about changing a behavior. It's about change management. So one of the biggest work I had to do is giving evidence to our users of the amount of money that they are saving and showing them how they can save a lot of time. So when you're every day going out of work late because you are screening a CV and kind of calling candidates, and you get an algorithm that automates that, and you can get out of work at 6 p.m. and go to your family, that's when people say, hey, this works for me. And then they start telling other people. So I think the biggest challenge that we had was the adoption at the beginning. Now that we have many use cases and success cases, that change. And so now we are adding new layers of that. But what we're doing, and this is so many people would say, okay, how does HR connect with giving access to financial services to people? So in Latam, 58% of the default in lending is caused when a person loses the job. So it's not that he's not willing, he has not willingness to pay, it's that he's not able to pay. So if we can use the data that we gather across HR, you can do a better risk assessment. And this is really related to the accessible data systems that we have in Latam. In the US, 95% of people are in what you would call credit bureaus or in consortiums. In Latam, only 30% of people are in these ecosystems. So we're using HR to create all those data systems and to give better tools so lenders can be more efficient. And if they are more efficient, they can give a better value proposition and charge less to users. So that's how we are changing this. We are enabling things that before it didn't exist.
Have you had to change your way of thinking when it comes to building out the platform? I mean, if so, tell us how.
And it's a very interesting question for this moment. And there's all these users, but we are talking that these are not tech-savvy users, right? So in many ways, you find a lot of products that do a lot of things. So we do a lot of benchmarks. So we have seen, for example, that many products have a lot of features, but people don't use them. And the reason why they don't use them is that because the US UX is very poor. So what we are very emphatic with all our team is talking a lot with the user and understanding what really provides value. And we have found, for example, that it's like the biggest comparison that I could make is is when we are using, I don't know, Excel, right? Excel has like 500 features, but you usually only use about 20 of them. So it's the same thing here. The value is created only with 20 to 30 features, but the key process is to having a great UX. And I think that's the only way to get promoters is when you deliver a great experience. And when you're telling me about the way of thinking, right now we are kind of in this process of, okay, how do we use the new technologies and integrate that into our ecosystem? So we are talking about blockchain, Web3, but you are talking that of users that are not tech savvy. So they're not going to be, if you're trying, for example, in remittances, the remittances market in Latam is very big. So if you could use a tag that enables to lower the price and be more efficient and have the money faster for the user. But essentially the UX needs to be high quality. So for that, since most of those technologies are still early in the moment, you maybe don't even tell the user that you are using those type of technologies. You're just telling me, okay, you're saving your money in USD, but in the back you are using crypto, you're using stable coins, blockchain. So that's also a way to frame it in terms of what we are doing at the moment. And it is, as I told you, it's an interesting question for the moment and the things that we are deciding just in the last 2 weeks.
All right. So we're going to shift here a little bit. We're going to talk about some fundraising now. Everybody's favorite thing. So let's talk about how much time and effort has gone into fundraising relative to you running the company.
Well, usually what I think in terms of, and I think many of the people get this wrong. I think usually you fundraise every day, but you open the round only for, I don't know, 1 or 2 months. So the key here, and at least for me, is about creating connections, because finally people invest in people. The people that is making the decision at the other side of the table, he's not only considering, okay, what are the financial benefits of this? He's considering, hey, do I really believe if this is a bad market, do these guys have what it takes to make this happen? Do I want to talk to this person for 3, 5, 7, 10 years, right? So I think in terms of that, what I usually do is try to make a lot of connections and relationships. And usually what happens in that process is if you do it right and you create the right connections and in the numbers are there, essentially you are going to get money offered. So in the first funding that we had, it was very, very fast. I think we closed the rounds, I don't know, like in 3 to 5 weeks, something like that, after we opened that. But I think in markets that what is happening right now, that everyone is talking about recession, everyone is talking about the market going down, inflation, all those concerns. What I think what it's going to happen is that.
Well, before we get too far ahead, let me ask you, how did you determine initially how much you needed? And who did you decide to approach for the money?
Okay. So in terms of that, what we decided, we basically created a budget and we asked for twice the money that we needed. That's how because we knew that we were going to make mistakes. We knew that there's a lot of things that are uncertain that are going to change and you don't know what you needed. And in terms of deciding which people would be those first investors, what we did is we needed to understand different sectors. Since we work with, in the US, you will call the workforce or blue collar jobs or low and mid skilled jobs. So we needed to understand very specific sectors. So we needed to understand construction. We needed to understand retail, logistics, manufacturing. So basically we search for investors in each of those categories because we understood that they were the ones that are going to give us a lot of value in terms of understanding, in terms of access, besides the money. And that's how we did it. And so we kind of make a list and start seeing who could get us into kind of warm interest to get to talk to those guys.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. How have any of those investors helped you develop the company? I mean, if they actually helped you just besides giving you money?
Yes. So for example, at the beginning, we thought that one of the key sectors that we were going to work with was construction. But when we have One of our investors is the owner of the biggest construction company here in Colombia. So basically, when he opened, I don't know, like doors with 5-7 different people in that sector, and we were able to have those conversations. And we understood that the construction market behaves completely different because when you're developing technology, you basically are developing use cases. So the use case for construction is completely different to what is the use case for logistics, what is for retail, what is for salespeople. Instead of that, for example, sales, logistics, those kind of have the same use cases. So we decided at the beginning to put just construction, and we didn't waste any money in that place. But the same was when we started to add and to integrate financial services. We had like 2 of our investors that have a lot of experience, so they were able to connect us with key people related to the lending, to financial services, to networks. And for example, there's one investor of us that he basically connect. I think most of our previous round, about 70% was purely connections that he made for us.
Wow, that's remarkable to hear.
That's the kind of investors
great.
that we went.
Yeah. So let's fast forward here. So right now you've been doing this for a while, and you guys are generating revenue and things are moving along, and now you're looking to raise capital again, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How much is the capital raise this time?
Right now we are raising a late seed round. Previous to a Series A, we are raising $2 million USD.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you feel being a Colombian or a Latam company makes a difference when it comes to raising funds? And if so, why?
Well, I think the number of investors that understand kind of the pain points of the market and understand the context are less. So in terms of that, either you have to be better at the segmentation and the prospecting of those investors. In terms of that, you have to put an extra effort. The second part is, I think the networks are different. So you have to put an extra effort to create that. In Latin America, it's a very, very relationship driven. I think every country is kind of relationship driven, but Latin America, it's more relationship driven when you compare it to the US. So in terms of that, I think that's very different.
Do you feel that the investors are different than international investors? I mean,
Yes.
The way they look at things, is it different?
It's totally different. We had conversations right now we're doing kind of this late seed stage because we can create a lot of value in the next. Just to give more context to the audience, we just kind of 4x our sales in the last 6 months. So we know that in the next 6 months, we're going to 4x again the revenue of the company, and we could create a profitable company. We have very good unit economics. So for example, in terms of that, in Latam, most of the investors were in the last years, they were all worried about unit economics. In the US, for example, they're just with this new context that's kind of shifted, and now they're worrying more about that. But I think in terms of Latin American raising money, you have to get more proof points. You have to get better traction, and because they don't understand the market. But when you say to them, hey, we have already 4x our revenue, they start to hear and to listen to that.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Why don't you tell us about your plan to scale the company and why you believe sophisticated investors will find Adelante to be a good investment?
For sure. I can tell you a few things related to that. Our model is very similar to a company that it's already close to becoming a unicorn, and they are already profitable, that it's better placed in India. And the founder is one of our investors, and he's an advisor. So we kind of have this knowledge of how to do that process. So the process to create this company and create a very huge business is this. We use HR as a way to acquire a lot of users with a lot of data. And that business has very good unit economics, and we solve that problem to the company. But on the other side, we use all that data and all those users that we get, that basically we're able to reduce the cost of acquisition by 90% and get 10 times more data. And when you know how to use that data, basically you're getting a user for less than X value, and you can multiply the value when you convert that user to financial services almost by 200. That's it. So that's how we become a company that is more than, that it goes above a unicorn in the next 3 to 4 years.
What advice would you like to give to other Latam entrepreneurs contemplating early stage fundraising?
I think 3 things. The first one is get a growth mindset. Understand that you should.
What does that mean?
That means that
Spell it out. Spell it out.
No problem. That basically means that your talents are not fixed. You can develop that. So everything is a skill. It just takes time. And so you can get better either at fundraising, either in sales. So I think many entrepreneurs that are, especially the guys that are very technical, they're basically say, hey, I'm not good at sales, but we are selling every day. When we ask our girlfriend to go out, we ask our kids to go to the bed, basically we are selling them something. So that's kind of a shift that I think sales has this very kind of bad reputation, but understand that you can develop a growth mindset, understand how to sell. And the other thing is really understand how you provide value. When you understand the value that you provide, you then can compare how your value that you are creating compares to other types of value. And if you're able to put that in words, so basically when we explain what we do is we're building a Web3 LinkedIn with financial services. People really understand that. So they kind of get their picture on the schemas that they already have, and they understand what we are doing. So then they understand that there is a process. First, you get an interest, then you get a meeting. Then after the meeting, they ask for more information. Then you get to due diligence. But it's the same when you're getting to a user, selling a product, creating value. It's the same thing. It's always a process. So if you create processes, then you get the results.
Terrific. So Mateo, the audience that's listening, you have a variety of people. So who are interested probably, in the platform Adelante. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, whether it's as a customer, a partner, investor. How do they reach you?
Yes, for sure. As a customer, you can enter to www.talent.co. And that basically that's the brand that we use for B2B.
Let's spell it out for them just so.
Okay, www.talentu.co. And I think we could add that to the notes of the episode. And if they want to reach me, they can contact me at m@talentu.co, or also on Twitter, Mateo FH on Twitter or on LinkedIn.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your story experience with the audience today. I know you will inspire many other entrepreneurs who face similar challenges or even different challenges. But we want to wish you the best with your fundraising efforts and scaling Adelante. And thank you again for being on Funding and Disrupting.
Hey, thank you very much, Keith. Thank you for the audience, and they keep up with this work. That it's great to put this information out in the market.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Funding and Disrupting. Don't forget to visit our sponsor, OURACO.com, to learn more about working directly with OURA Collective's exclusive technology PR team. They'll help you craft your message, get noticed in the press, and help you get your venture to the funding finish line. Again, you can visit them at www.ouraco.com. Keep funding and keep disrupting.